What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Nautical Narratives. I am your narrator, the one, the only, Mr. First Class. So I pray everybody is having a wonderful week. I myself am having an amazing one. I was able to give my job my 2 weeks notice. I am moving to a position that is fully remote, but it pays the same amount, which allows me to not only provide for my family, but with an upcoming birth happening, my son will be coming soon. It's nice to be able to be in the house and be around and be of help to not only my wife, but also just to be in the presence of my son and have his father, constantly in his face and around, so he knows that he is loved. So with that being said, if you like the content, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, all that. With that out of the way, here's the bluff. Many times in life, when you make a decision, when you decide that you're going to go after something, to do something, to be something, life is going to put you to the test. And definitely, I was put to the test in my decision to join the Navy. Now, to start off, the Navy was not my first choice. Now, that's a story for another day, but just know that the Navy was not my first choice. But ultimately, the first obstacle that I had to deal with is the fact that while I have never, ever been diagnosed as having asthma, since I was 12 years old, I have had shortness of breath. I have had wheezing, dizzy spells when I run. So like activity, not just, because some people have asthma attacks for a lot of different reasons, but activity. So the things that, running, working out too strenuously, a lot of times it would cause me to, like I said, and I was on a track team, and I always carried a fast acting inhaler, like a rescue inhaler, basically. That's what they call them. And so that's very, very first obstacle is that. And because I've never been diagnosed, I had it in my mind that ultimately I couldn't take my inhaler with me, right? So I said it in my own mind. I told myself, not a conversation that I had with anybody, just within myself, I said to myself, the inhaler will not come with me. And I will leave out of boot camp one way or another, either in a bag or in my uniform. There is no other options. So I'm gonna either be carried out of here in a bag because, my breathing was so bad that I died, or I'm coming out of my uniform. I didn't give myself any other options. So again, that was the first obstacle. And I made it up in my mind that that wasn't going to be something that hindered me from my future. Now, the second thing that I had was maybe a little bit tougher, though I didn't see it as being necessarily that tough, but I could see how it could be perceived as being tougher. I had to deal with the conversation with my mom. So my dad was not around any longer in order for me to have his support. My daddy was Navy. So my dad would have been more of the person that I would have went through in this conversation, in this journey. And I probably wouldn't even had that conversation with my mom. My dad would have had that conversation with my mom. But because my dad had passed in 2000 and I was headed to boot camp in 2001, I had to have the conversation with my mama. And that conversation went a little bit like this. I told my mom what my decision was, and her being the loving mother that she is, and well-meaning in her reaction, She was nervous. She was frightened. I definitely wouldn't say she whined, but she was not excited about the idea of her son going to the Navy or going to the military in any way. And my response to my mother was as simple as this. She has repeated it over the years, telling the story to different individuals, and it is always the same. The conversation was as simple as this. Hey, stop being selfish. This ain't about you. It's about me. You've lived your life. Now it's time for me to live mine. Now, for many of you, you'd be like, how did you one muster that kind of courage up to talk to your mama like that? Because again, I'm only 19 years old at the time. And so it's like, how did you muster that up? And I can tell you that even that was based on my parents and the way that they raised me. They raised me to have a voice, to be able to speak up for myself. And so, again, that obstacle, for some, it might have been a daunting task, but for me, it was that moment, I guess, that moment where I became a man, where I had to speak up for myself to this person that has been, this loving but very stern authority figure my entire life. But I had to, because I love my mom. I love my mom and my dad, and they were awesome people. They weren't the nicest always, but they were awesome. But I still had to muster up that courage. And so I got through that obstacle. And so the third one, which again is a story for another day, but I originally signed up for the military prior to 9/11, but I ultimately did not go to boot camp until after 9/11. And some people, are like, man, you could have got out of it at that point, because I was still at the house. I was still at home when 9/11 happened. And so, that could have scared me. That could have deterred me from wanting to go. But at the time, being 19 and from Illinois, from the middle of America, New York and DC felt like a world away. It felt like another country to me, because it was just something I saw on TV. I had never been to either place. I knew it was a part of the United States. I just wasn't necessarily connected to it yet. I definitely ended up getting very, very acquainted with both places. But at the time, at 19, like I said, I hadn't been that many places. I had mostly been to the, middle America, Oklahoma, Texas, Illinois, Mississippi, like pretty much that up and down, right down the middle. And so, like I said, New York, these big cities just seemed so far away at the time. So 9/11 didn't really deter me. I wasn't really scared. Plus I had already made up in my mind that I was going to do what I was going to do. And once I put my word on something, whether it is to my detriment or not, I'm going to walk that thing out. So again, 9/11 could have been an obstacle, but it wasn't. The thing that probably was the hardest part, because remember I said I had never been diagnosed with asthma, but I have all the telltale signs of asthma. And so me going through boot camp without an inhaler was a struggle. That was a struggle. But then you ultimately come to this thing in the Navy called battle stations. Now, battle stations has definitely changed since I went to boot camp. Remember, I went to boot camp in 2001. I've talked to people subsequently over the years, and they've said that it's obviously changed some. But what we're talking about right here, right now, we're talking about the 2001 version of it. So battle stations is this culmination of all the things that you've learned about from the Navy. Now you actually have to put it into practice. You have to walk out all the things that they've been teaching you as far as the history of the Navy, the disasters of the Navy, and essentially what battle stations was in 2001. And for the most part, it is now. It is all of the disasters and that have happened in the Navy, like the major ones. And it's trying to teach you about what you would do when your brain is no longer working. Can you still function and still do what it is that you need to do? Now, mind you, this is Chicago, because I guess back before I came in, there was a boot camp in Orlando, Florida as well, which that would have been nice. But unfortunately, I end up running battle stations December of 2001. And it isn't snowing, but it is freezing, and it is raining cats and dogs on the day that I run battle stations. So battle stations is this. You go through your entire day. You start out at 5 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, like 4:30, 5 a.m. And you start your day. You go PT, you go to chow, you go to class, yada, yada, yada. You go out to lunch, you run through your day. Well, normally our nights end at 11 o'clock, but on this particular night, it ends at 9. It doesn't officially end, but it's part of battle stations. They simulate you going to sleep, and some people obviously fell asleep, other people didn't. But then they come in and they shake you, and it starts from there. So you're talking, you have been up since 5 a.m., let's say Friday morning. It is 9:15, 9:30 on Friday night. And they come in and they wake you out of either a simulated sleep, or again, some people actually did fall asleep in that little bit of time that they gave us. You had to be ready to go and in front of your rack, or if you've watched a previous video, it's just the bunk beds. So you had to be in front of your bunk bed, and you had to be in full battle gear. So like normally our shirts are buttoned like this. You had to have your shirt fully buttoned up to the top, your pants tucked in your socks. You had to have your knit cap on because obviously it's cold and rainy, and you had to have your jacket over your arm, and you had to do all that from drawers and t-shirt and socks. You had to do that in 7 minutes coming out of a sleep. From there, you would get into formation in front of they call it a ship, but it's really just the building that your barracks that you sleep in. You come outside, you formulate out in front, and then you run. And it's in formation run. And anybody that has ever been in the military will tell you it is so much worse to run to a cadence and in a formation, because you're not able to stretch your steps or your strides out fully. You're running in like a subdued spot because you can't fall out of ranks, and you have to get to where you're going. And where you run to is just across the base. It's not super far, but it's the beginning of battle stations. I mean, obviously you've started all this stuff, but the beginning of battle stations. And you get to this building, they start telling you about, hey, this is what the night's going to be like. We're going to throw all these things at you. And then from I would say about 10 o'clock, 10:30 that night, you will go through these different scenarios. One particular one is the forestall fire. You got to look it up. Or the USS Cole, the bombing of the USS Cole. And it's that particular one. I think it's you're on one side of the room or one side of a space. There's another group on the other side of the space. There's just a small hole in the wall, and your room is filling up with water, and you have to have the presence of mind to move these munitions from your side, which is wet, to the dry side through that hole in the wall. And you basically do like a daisy chain and get it through the wall, which, like I said, seems like nothing, but is a lot when you are running on absolutely fumes. So not only are you running on fumes, because you're doing this, like I said, you've gone all day Friday. This is 10 o'clock at night on Friday night, and you are running from place to place to place. And of course, my lungs are screaming. They are burning. And again, without an inhaler, I'm really just having to gut it out. But I am running from place to place. You stop at that place, you do an event, then you get back in formation, and you run to the next place, and you run to the next place. Eventually, the final event is firefighting. The final event is firefighting, and once you get through all of that, if you have made it without making 3 mistakes, because they only give you 3 strikes, but if you make 3 mistakes, you fall asleep, something like that. If you argue with them about falling asleep, you out, and then you got to do it all over again, a different day with a different division, because now you can't even do it with the division that you were with originally. You're gonna have to do it with somebody else. And unfortunately for me, because of not being able to swim, I ended up doing mines with a different unit the day of my graduation. So I completed my battle stations after I had technically was already done with boot camp. But yeah, so it was, but either way, you do this all the way until 10 a.m. And then they walk you into this room. And when I tell you, it's one of the most emotional moments, especially, like I said, having gone through all these obstacles, not just in this battle stations, but all the obstacles just to get here. Because let me go back. My mama wasn't the only person that I had to fight against. I had to fight against all of my family in my ear, telling me that I was crazy, making all these reasons why I shouldn't go. You a fool. They gonna send you to war. You gonna get killed. Yada yada yada. All the things that are liable to come to people's minds and for them to say, rather than support you, seeing that this is something that you want, they try to talk you out of it. But getting through all that, but then finally to, like I said, be from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. And then they walk you into this room with all these white and blue squares. And there's this screen that has something over the top of it, like a little tarp over the top of this screen. But when they basically move the tarp, and now you realize that it's actually a TV monitor, and they tell you, come in, stand on the blue squares, and you have 2 hats. You have a recruit hat and you have a Navy hat. And it's the ceremony to switch from being a recruit to actually being a sailor. Man, like I was told by the rest of my division that, oh, you're going to cry. And I was like, nah, man, it's fine. Nah, listen, I'm not ashamed to say I shed tears at that moment, because you go through a lot. And like I said, you're also drained. It's been over 24 hours and you have been pushing your body to the limit. and me specifically being pushed to the limit because my lungs are burning. Like I said, it's sometimes hard for me to catch my breath. I got spots in front of my eyes, but I accomplished it. I finished the mission, and it was amazing feeling. And ultimately, obviously, if I have retired after 22 years, I made it. And I made it through a lot more over those 22 years. But boot camp was that very first real true test of my will, because I knew I wanted something more for my life than what my city had to offer me. At the time, the only two real things that you could work for Caterpillar, or I think Komatsu was a spot that you could work at, or you worked at one of the hospitals. Other than that, there was nothing else. There was no real prospects for what to do with the rest of your life, or and this place is, again, I knock nobody who stayed, because again, a lot of people have made a good living for themselves, have taken care of their families, they bought homes, all of that. I just knew that place was not for me. And by the grace of God, I was able to not pass out at any point during boot camp. There were a couple times I felt like throwing up, but luckily I never passed out. I passed all the physical stuff that they threw at me. I made it through battle stations, and I was able to put that Navy cap on and officially be considered a United States sailor. So I pray that story, not only did you get something out of it, maybe something you didn't know about the Navy, or maybe you are a sailor and you just reminiscing about your battle stations, about your time in boot camp. But I just pray for anybody that is watching this and has never been to boot camp or anything like that, or somebody is young. I'm not saying go to the military. I'm saying there are going to be times in your life where you are going to have to fight through some stuff. Even if it's just mental, even if it's just the outside voices trying to push you away from what your goal is. It's going to be daunting sometimes. It's going to be hard. And honestly, sometimes it may be life and death. But if it's something that you really, really want, man, I say push for it. I say do whatever it takes. Do whatever is required of you. Obviously legally, but you know what I'm saying? Do whatever it takes, because seeing what my life looks like on the other side of accomplishing that, my life has been, I would probably say my life and my experiences have been a million times better than anything that I could have imagined that they would be when I originally make that decision. And definitely my horizons and my perspective in life have been opened up because I left what I knew for the unknown and grasped at a life that I knew was out there for me to have. So with that being said, as always, fair winds following seas, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.